Hello, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure to see you all in the audience. Here's my presentation. First, I would like to say several things about this IGF and extend my gratitude to the organizers of this forum. First of all, I must say that, let me present myself. My name is Alim Khapov. I represent an organization called Center for Global IT Cooperation. We're a Moscow-based research center, analytical center created by Russian Coordination Center for TLD.RU.RF. We operate within the IGF and ITU ecosystems now for more than 5 years. We actively engage in all IGF since IGF in Poland. We also host and co-host the Russian Internet Governance Forum and Youth Russian Internet Governance Forum. Originally, this session was supposed to be hosted by colleagues of ours, but unfortunately, they didn't have time and didn't make it to Oslo, to Lillestrøm, to visit the IGF, and we have decided to support them in this session and host it ourselves. That's pretty much the beginning. The topic our colleagues decided to pick up, and we also supported them in this endeavor, is concerning the digitalization of the Arctic and, generally speaking, development of the Arctic region. And we believe that this topic is of great importance and relevance nowadays, and especially in formats such as IGF. Perhaps there should be more time spent on issues concerning the Arctic region, especially when we are hosting IGF in a country like Norway, which is an active member of the Arctic Council, and generally speaking has a lot of projects, especially near the Svalbard area, which are connected to digitalization. Several things about the Arctic region. It definitely is a zone of collaboration and a zone of competition, especially nowadays. We always hear here and there the talks about Greenland, about the militarization of the Arctic, about resource chase concerning the Arctic oil and gas fields. And we should always keep in mind that Arctic is a fragile region. Currently, it has almost 4 million population. 10% of that population is of indigenous origin, meaning people who lived and inhabited Arctic region before European countries started the process of colonization, before the modern states arrived there. It is a fragile ecosystem. It is also a fragile culture. But progress is unstoppable, and it is moving on, especially with the processes such as global warming. The Arctic is rapidly changing. The new passages and routes are opening. Therefore, the ships are moving in, the infrastructure moves in, and people also settle. As I was saying, representing the organization which operates from Moscow, from Russia, we also have a large portion of our country located in the Arctic region, and ourselves, we know on our own example about migration from certain parts of the country to the Arctic, about the challenges that arise there, and about local communities and how they feel, how they change and adapt to new processes which go hand in hand with digitalization. For example, one of the major initiatives right now, which is supported by our government and by the Ministry of Digital Affairs, is the creation of certain IT camps. Interestingly enough, even there is a special phrase for it, which goes as IT stojbiще, literally translating to as IT kettle camp, because of the distance of certain regions of the Arctic and even inability to access those regions by the road. There is no roads, there are no roads, there are no railways which would lead to these regions, and people especially, they are still citizens, and they still have to be connected to the internet, and that is why recently government has launched 100+ more IT camps in certain areas of the Arctic where people, especially indigenous people who live in nomadic lifestyle, they can arrive to these IT camps, have access to internet, free access to internet. It is one of the efforts to combat the so-called digital divide, and I believe this initiative is important, and I know that it is also implemented in various other countries of the Arctic Council, and initiatives like that, I think, should be supported and paid attention to. It is important that local communities of the Arctic are included, connected to the rest of the world, but it is also important to protect those communities from all sorts of threats which are currently online. We are not leaving them just simply open to the web. We also need to protect their rights online, and I think that the first step is already done. We bring those communities, we connect them, and next step is to protect those communities, protect them online. There is also an issue of energy. When we not only bring digital infrastructure in examples of IT camps to Arctic, we also bring massive projects, we also bring infrastructure. We develop those regions because obviously they have massive resources which need to be used, and it is important for us to use them responsibly, using technologies which do not harm the environment and people in these regions. We cannot just, it would be wrong, I think, by all means to just exploit those unique regions which were untouched by human hands for millennia, using the same old techniques and technologies which were used prior in humanity's history. That is why, for instance, corporations like Rosatom implement decisions such as nuclear power plants in the far north. There's a long-standing debate about the security and actual greenness of nuclear technologies. There were several important infamous cases of nuclear power going out and bringing destruction. But I think the majority of experts right now agree that nuclear power plants, when managed correctly and with responsible design, can produce ample volumes of energy, supply them, and be a sustainable force. And one of the, as you can see, Russia has a lot of nuclear power plants. We have a lot of resource infrastructure. History of that infrastructure. We also develop nuclear power plants abroad. We have a lot of international partners with whom in collaboration we build nuclear power plants. And one of the particularly interesting examples of nuclear power plants built in the Arctic is the recent there's also a nuclear-powered icebreaker fleet, which I believe is also an integral part of the Arctic exploration, and it is also a part of the nuclear-powered program. So, for instance, a nuclear-powered icebreaker can operate as an icebreaker, but it can also operate as a small nuclear power plant when it landed onto the shore. And the next step of the development of this idea is the creation of the floating nuclear power plants. The first one was created in 2020, I believe, and it is called Academic Lomonosov Power Plant. An ingenious design, really. It is a single reactor power plant which is used in the high north. Currently it operates in Chukotka region, which is on the border with Alaska and the Republic of Sakha. Depending on the energy needs of certain regions and towns in the up north, the power plant moves depending on the season and operates as a mobile power plant. This is a single example of this new technological thinking applied to the exploration of the Arctic, and even now there are talks of expanding this program and building more floating nuclear power plants. And there are also projects of small nuclear power plants which are expected to be built in the Arctic, such as the one in the Republic of Sakha, Yakutia, far north. And there is a lot of debate concerning this project right now in Russia and as well as internationally, because as I was saying, projects like that, they bring a lot of opportunities for local communities. Aside from the clean energy and energy as such, they also may provide a fundament for infrastructure. So whenever we build an SNPP in the high north, we need certain power grid, we need roads, we need connections, we build entire new cities in the high north. We also employ workers, we employ the local population, but it can also create serious problems. Aside from the threats of ecological disaster, we can also endanger communities which have a certain lifestyle that they would like to preserve. And it is very important, I believe, to take this into account when building such projects in the high north, to provide opportunities for those who require opportunities, but not to disturb the lifestyle of communities that have lived there for thousands of years. I would like also to, once again, highlight the prospects of the usage of Arctic in terms of Northeast Passage and this Northern Sea route. I think these routes are essential when we are thinking about the Arctic exploration and development, especially when it comes to digitalization, because these routes, they serve as a fundament for all future infrastructure and development for economic activities. In my view, on the lines of these routes will soon will appear settlements, and all those settlements will require basic infrastructure. And it is our responsibility to take into account safety, sustainability, and security when we're developing the Arctic region, and especially collaboration. Even in terms of geopolitical struggle, I think it is important to cooperate and stick together when it comes to such matters as the Arctic. And if we lose time and if we do not cooperate on this issue, if we do not work together in exploring, in combining our efforts in creating ethical and responsible approaches to digitalization, exploration of the Arctic, we may simply lose time and it will be far gone. So I would urge all the colleagues to unite on that question of responsible digitalization, responsible exploration, and responsible infrastructure construction in the Arctic, because it's underway, and I think it is our responsibility and our job to work together, even throwing aside all geopolitical struggles and security matters, which were always there and which will always remain. So I think that's pretty much it. I would actually very much like for someone from Norway to participate, or for our colleagues who were initially supposed to host this session to be here, but unfortunately that's it. Yet we have 15 minutes, and I would really encourage some sort of discussion or dialogue with you. That's it. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Sure, we can do it like this, I think, if we still have time.
What do you think that climate change might have an impact on Arctic digitalization?
Sorry.
Climate change might, what kind of effect do you think that it might have on?
I think it already had an effect in a sense that it made Arctic more accessible. We have known for the potential of the Arctic region for a long time. So the idea that there are large deposits of rare earth metals in Greenland, or that there's entire gas fields and oil fields near the North Ice Pole, it's not a very new idea. So we have known about this information, and we know about the richness of the region. And we also always knew that the Northeast Passage, if working, would be a much faster and easier route than via the Suez Canal or Malacca Strait. For instance, there was a very famous comparison that from the port of, I think, Tokyo or Vladivostok to Antwerpen, it takes twice the time to travel via the standard route via Malacca Strait and Suez Canal than it would take via the Northeast Passage. So it's just simply, this knowledge has always been there, but what the climate change has done is that the ice caps are melting, the routes are becoming more accessible. There is also the entire fleet of nuclear, where was this slide? Icebreakers, which is built in Russia. There are also icebreakers built in Scandinavian countries. In United States are currently on their way building the entire fleet. So all these developments combined with the melting of the ice, it also reveals new territories which can be explored. So I believe that is the biggest contribution of the global warming in relation to the Arctic. Oh, well, yeah, sure. There are questions online. That's great.
First off, he's asking if there's possible to build data centers on the Arctic.
Well, yeah, as I was saying, it is a very debatable question. There are currently several examples of that. In Iceland, they actively build data centers, and they use the Arctic climate as an advantage, but because they have the necessary infrastructure. I think maybe in the future, for instance, the Svalbard would be a perfect place to build data centers, because there are already some storages and facilities on the island. And there is some basic infrastructure which would help. Iceland would also perfectly be... there's also an issue of undersea cables. So currently there are not a lot of undersea cables. There's one which is called Polar Air Express, which is currently built in Russian Federation from Murmansk, near a Norwegian border, via the entire Northern Sea route. So it is also a question of the sea cables. Whenever we bring that connection to the North Pole, there will be data centers there. So I think that is also significant, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I missed maybe the beginning by just mentioning about cable. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the challenge specific to operate sub-cable under the ice? Like, I guess this is also in terms of resiliency. If anything happen below the ice, suppose it's not very easy to maintain or to repair?
True, yeah. It's very true that it is hard to repair and maintain sea cables when they're under the ice. But as I was saying, the ice is melting, the climate is changing. There's also, I think, an issue of geopolitics, because certain lines in the Arctic are not drawn. Not all countries agree on the lines right now in the Arctic region. So when sea cables will be laid down in this region, we need to take into account the possibility of geopolitical tensions when it comes to where these cables lie and where they cross. So it's an entirely new dialogue, but concerning the hardships which are environmental, yeah, it's true. But construction is on the way. There are several projects. I know very well about the Russian project, and I'm absolutely sure that there are some projects of Canada and US probably as well concerning the sea cables in the Arctic. It is becoming quite relevant.
We're getting one final question from online. He's logging on and will be on screen.
Thank you. I would like to ask, you say that the melting ice will pave the way for us to explore other regions. So are you saying it's an advantage for the ice to melt and it won't cause any damages in the future?
I wouldn't pose this as an advantage. Rather, it is a fact. It is an ongoing process which we international community try to abate. We try to reverse this process of global warming by introduction of green technologies, by reducing carbon emissions. But so far, I think that the global temperature is still rising, and this isn't something we can avoid. Therefore, I wouldn't say it is an advantage. It is an inevitable reality. And of course, there will be challenges when the ice melts. There will be challenges connected to the global warming. Definitely, there are some parts of the world which will experience floods because of that, and there are rising sea levels. And when it comes to Arctic as well, there are some regions which may suffer greatly. Some biological issues which also need to be taken into account. There are certain species of animals and plants which may be harmed. But I'm not a biologist, nor am I a great expert in environmentalism, so I don't think it's up to me to judge, but I would rather say this is an inevitable process, and we need to adapt to this process and do as much as we can to preserve the Arctic and to reduce the potential damage in the region. So that would be my answer. If you have any comments, I would look forward to answering to them as well. All good? Yeah, thank you.